Okay, now that we've cut out our creature, I've made a merged copy that I cut out, and then I made a copy of the merged copy where I can do things like clone stamp and fix certain things. And so this ear, this tag in the ear, I'm just going to use my clone stamp, not on a new layer, but just within that layer to just paint it out. First at 100% opacity, and then a little larger. Not that large. Whoops. And at a lower opacity, because I was doing it with soft edges always. To kind of blend these edges. So this is a way without using any of the AI tools or even using something that's called content aware, which the computer just samples from around the edges of a selection and then generates matching pixels. This is a way you can really quickly learn how to use compositing to do spot corrections. Just like photo retouching to remove blemishes. Is there anywhere else I want to do some of that clone stamping? So maybe take a little bit of this texture, put it up here at this low opacity, just because those shadows are a little abrupt. But what we're really talking about are kind of lighting inconsistencies, right? And so I do it on a duplicate so you can see if you like the result or not. Yeah. Another thing you can do sometimes with focus pools, like you see how the mustache is really sharp there and then really blurry here. Because it's on a duplicate, you're safe to experiment with this. We can use a tool that looks like a water drop, and it is the blur tool, but underneath it is the sharpen tool, which will just exaggerate contrast between edges, which is not the same thing as sharpening the pixels, but it can help clarify things you want to be more in focus. Now, if you do it too much, you're going to start to get digital noise, but look at the difference. So these are finishing techniques, because what we really want is a creature that's just fully believable that we can put into any condition. I can use a little sharpening over here as well. This is a very strong tool. I would usually use it at less than 20, just like the tools, other finishing technique tools I'm going to show you. Let's see. Maybe sharpen a little bit on this nostril. But the main thing I see and on these claws is that this creature has a huge head, and yet there doesn't seem to be a shadow underneath that head on the body. So even if it's just kind of general lighting conditions, I see the shadow underneath the paws. I don't really see much of a shadow underneath the chin. So the last thing we can do to mess with our combined layer are these finishing options that are underneath the blur tool or the sharpen tool. And these are called dodge, burn, and sponge. So I'm just going to go in order. Dodge is like your levels adjustment for brightening, but you get to use it as a tool only where you want it instead of on the whole selection or whole layer. So I'll use the dodge tool. I use it at a strength and exposure of less than 20. So let's do like 15 or so. I like to use it with a tablet with pressure sensitivity on. Just like an eraser, I use it fairly large at a 0% hardness. You're going to see why. This is for adding highlights. So what it does is change the pixels in the layer where you use it. And the eyes, the brow has a lot of light on it, but the top of this ear doesn't. So I'm going to go ahead and dodge the top of that ear. Always in the midtones, only at 14%. And it's going to bring that light to that ear. But if I do it too much, it's going to start to look weird. That is what dodge does. If there's little areas I want to bring out a little bit more light, like they got too shadowy, I can use dodge to help. Only in the midtones. If I want to brighten up that mustache a little bit, dodge can help. Tops of the feet, brighten them up a tiny bit, dodge can help. See the difference? Remember, I do this on a duplicate. Brighten up the shadows, dodge can help. Okay, that's the dodge tool. The burn tool, dodge a little bit there, dodge a little bit there. All right, you get the idea. The burn tool does the opposite. That's for darkening the midtones. Again, use it less than 20. Pressure sensitive, large, completely soft-edged brush. Where do I need shadows? Well, I said I needed it under the chin. Underneath this mustache, because it's a big head on a small body. And then I can see, yes, that shadow underneath the head helps. Is there anywhere the highlights are too strong? Anywhere I want to knock it down a bit? How do I push that mustache underneath the nostril? I put a little shadow at the edge of the nostril, so it feels like it's coming out. So those are dodge and burn. Now, where does sponge come in? Well, if I burn too much or dodge too much, it will also bring out color that I might not want, like all that brown. You see how now these colors don't really match because I burned and dodged too much. But if I use the sponge tool and I set it to desaturate, you can use this to intensify color, it's like hue saturation, or to desaturate color, de-intensify color. Again, I'm going to use it less than 20, large, 0% hardness brush. And those are just the defaults. And as I won't have to change those settings as long as I'm in this use of Photoshop now. But now you see, it takes the color away, kind of turns it more towards grayscale, and can even it out. Now, maybe it's too gray, and maybe I want more of that color. Well, that's why I do it on a duplicate layer, because then I can always just softly erase it away with a low opacity, soft eraser. Right? And then I can blend it with the original. So you just have so many tools to get things to match that you can take advantage of once it's all merged together. But then I have to ask myself, well, do I like that one better with the dodging, burning, and little spot clone stamping? Or do I like it better this way? And I think it's a little bit cleaner with all of that stuff. So this is going to be my finished project. I'm going to hit Command S to save it. And then to put it up to canvas, I need to make an online format. And to meet the requirements, it needs to have no background. So I need to turn off this background, just so I see the checkerboard, and then export it under File, Export as a PNG, which is the only online format that allows you to have no background, supports transparency. That's going to go to Downloads. I'm going to pull it from Downloads, put it onto my desktop, mark it as orange. So that's what I do for my online files. Go to my assignment. You don't make multiple posts. You instead edit your original post. So if you did your required sketch, now I'm adding my second requirement, which is the required final creature from head to toe, cut out or saved as a PNG with no background visible. That doesn't mean a white background, doesn't mean a gray background, it means no background. How can we check that? Well, if I double click it on a Mac, even though it's white there, it will show up with a gray behind it because there's nothing there. And it'll show if I have any debris that still needs to be cleaned up. And if I just drag and drop it into this, it will have a white background just because that's the default background of the Canvas discussion board. And then I shrink it to fit under my name. And then we're going to do our presentation critique. And our presentation critique is you're going to say your name for us, remind everyone who you are, especially because we're going to be doing group presentation topics next class. So it's very important to know your group members' names and know how to say them and what they want to be called, maybe differently than what's in Canvas. And then you're going to answer this question: what still needs the most improvement? So for mine, what still needs the most improvement is probably the overall lighting is pretty dull. So I would like, when I put it into an environment, I'd like it to have more strongly directional lighting. So it doesn't look just like a dust mop, in a dark closet. There you go. And so does it meet kind of my inspiration? Yeah, fairly. But will it work for what I need it to do? Absolutely. Okay. That is it for assignment 2.